Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Give a minute before we jump in. It's time to chop it up. All right, all right. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the P-Ave Perspective with Mr. O'Neill. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out to tune in. But to those who've been rocking with me, welcome back. Welcome back. As usual, we always, you know what I'm saying, talk about something that's relevant to us, the community. And tonight, we tackling a subject that many people avoid because it's uncomfortable. Are Black people truly free, or have the chains simply changed? Now, before we jump into it, disclaimer: this is not about racism. This is not about racism because I'm discussing being slaves to the system tonight. Being slaves to the system. And if you just be real about it, a lot of people from different races in the United States are slaves to the system, meaning they're dependent on the system as a whole. But as usual, I don't discuss everybody's problems and everybody's issues. I discuss issues that affect me and issues that affect my people. So that's the area that I'll be focusing on tonight. But again, it's not about racism. You know what I'm saying? Because I know just as many whites and other races who are actually slaves to the system. But like I said, when I talk about slavery in today's sense, I'm not talking about physical chains. I'm talking about economical dependence, or economic dependence, political dependence, educational dependence, employment dependence, and institutional dependence. Because all of those in today's era are different forms of slavery. But like I said, tonight isn't about blaming anybody. It's not about, you know, singling nobody out. But like I said, no one group is responsible for this. But like I always say, I like to look within. And we as a people are responsible for our situation. So that's those are the things that I like to discuss. But at the end of the day, it's about asking ourselves a question. How do we build a future where our children are less dependent and more empowered than we are today? How do we build on that? Because in every past generation, before mine, so I'm 53. So my past generation with my mom, my granddad and generations back, they were all about paving the way and putting their kids in positions to be better and do better than they did in their lifetime. But like I said, if you believe this conversation needs to happen, hit the like button, share the live stream, and invite someone else to the discussion, because the more the merrier. The more the merrier. But first of all, I want to just give insight on what real freedom means, what I feel and what is accepted as freedom. But what do you think freedom is? What is freedom? What does freedom mean to you? And when I've asked this question to different people, I've heard different answers like freedom to vote, freedom to speak your mind, being able to live wherever you want. But I've heard a lot of different answers. But here's another perspective. If someone else controls your paycheck, your housing and where you live, your food, your health care, your education, your transportation, all of this, like, how free are you really? How free are you really? Meaning, just like I said, if you have to get up and go to work every day at somebody's job, and I'm not knocking it, I'm just, being realistic. If you have to get up and go to work every day at somebody's job, and that person really controls your life because that person controls your money. That person controls, and that person can, at any given time, cut off your money and by default, cut off your way of life. Housing. Most of us are either renting or buying, from the system. Most of us work for the system. Like, if these people who control the food, not just the stores, but the processors, the slaughterhouses, whatever it is, down to the stores, most of it, the processes is owned by corporations, or what I refer to as the system. And like I said, we see it now with food prices. We see it now with food prices. We see it with rent. We see it with, like I said, our jobs. They control us. If we don't go to work at their jobs, a lot of us don't make money. A lot of us can't afford to live. If we look at the housing market right now, you know what I'm saying? Anybody that deal with rental properties in the housing market right now, you see how, the people who control it, they dictate the housing prices. So at any given time, a person can come to you and raise your rent, irregardless of how much money you make or whatever. And like I said, with the food, we see with the food prices right now, when a certain group of people controls all the food that's being processed or all the food that's being shipped in, they generally control the prices. And even now, like I've said before, with a lot of these food problems that we have. You know what I'm saying? With this food being tainted and stuff like that. A lot of times that may be true, but I also believe that a lot of times it's made up because I just look at economics. You know what I'm saying? And keep it real. I know my people come from a history, but I look at it as in any market where you control the market. If you control, the majority of a certain market, which is this food, like it's too easy to say that, well, there's something going on with the food. So we have to recall and we have to destroy a certain amount of food. But at the end of the day, when they recall and destroy that food, that puts people in a position where there's a food shortage. And then we know, based on supply and demand, when there's a food shortage, that's the opportunity for the powers that be to raise the price on the food that's remaining because it's a shortage. So I believe it's a game because, like I said, it's a corporate game. And I always remember with corporate game is about profits. So they are always figuring out ways to increase profits. They don't care about the consumer. They're constantly coming up with ways, constantly coming up with ideas to increase profits. And one of the primary ways to increase profits is to raise the price. They shareholders won't increase profits. They want to earn profits on the money they own. And the simplest way to increase profits year after year is to continue to raise the price. And let's be realistic. Anybody that works a regular job, y'all understand that while the food prices may be going up, while the gas may be going up, while the rent prices may be going up, usually the raises at the job are not coinciding with all the price raises. It's not. So it's like we're getting further and further behind. And a lot of people feel like it's really nothing we can do. We stuck in a cycle now, like I said, where we have to continue to work just to live. We're not working to get ahead because the system controls everything. So just like I said, they're not going to let it balance out to the point where we earn more than we have to, spend to live, and where we can actually save and we can actually, make other moves. The jobs aren't designed for us to get rich. They're designed for us to have to keep working so we can keep maintaining sometimes the basic, simple lifestyle, that we have. And to me, that's slavery. I don't know what other people call it, but to me, it's slavery in the worst way. And just like I said, when you talk about freedom is not just political, it's not just economic, it's educational, it's psychological, it's the ability to solve your own problems without always having to depend on somebody else. That's what real freedom is to me. But I want us to look honestly at some of the challenges that we as Black communities continue to face. And like I said, high poverty rates, you know what I'm saying? Believe it or not, we poor. We poor as hell. And like I said, we front on social media. Everybody front like they doing stuff and everybody front like they got it. But let's be realistic. The majority of the people, and that's, like I said, that's not just Blacks. But like I said, I speak on my people, but the majority of us are poor. The majority of us live in areas where our schools don't have the proper resources. They don't have the proper resources to do what, to educate our kids properly. We live in areas where we don't have access to investment capital. We don't have access for money to invest. We live in areas where the incarceration rate is higher. Let's keep it real. Like I said, we live in, areas where the food quality is low. And at that, it's high. It's too expensive. we live in areas where we have a higher rate of chronic health conditions, chronic health problems, and lower rates of business ownership, and even less, inherited wealth. We basically non-existent as a people when it comes to inherited wealth, meaning the generation before us, our parents or our grandparents leaving, wealth for us. Like now, most of the people dying now, let's keep it real. Most of the people dying now, they don't even have health insurance. That's why we see the GoFundMe's, to help bury people when they die. So those people are not leaving no wealth. They're not even leaving enough money for they people to bury them. So it's crucial right now. You know what I'm saying? And just like I said, when it all boils down to it, it's part of the bigger system. It's part of the bigger system to keep us in the position we is and to keep us dependent on the system. But again, none of these issues that I'm speaking on, none of these issues define every community. None of these issues define every person. You have some people that's winning. You have some people that have good jobs, that, live in areas where it's good education system. They have access to the food. They have access to all. Like, you do have those people. You do have those neighborhoods. You do have those communities. But for the most part, these challenges, they remain, real to the majority of us, meaning the majority of us can relate. But like I said, it's worth discussing. It's worth discussing. It's worth discussing. It's worth discussing. We're going to discuss it. We're going to discuss it. But I want to ask you, how do you think we got here? How do you really think we got here? But like I said, when I ask that question, I talk to people and I get insight from different people. When I ask, how did we get to the point where we became slaves to the system, I get different answers. I get people who take it back to slavery. People talk about Jim Crow, redlining, employment, the criminal justice system, all of this. But even though people disagree about the causes and the solutions, many people argue that those factors had lasting impact. They had lasting impact, like slavery and all of that. All of this happened before my time. You know what I'm saying? But it still impacts us today. And I want to talk about a few things that I feel like, number one, even before my time, it set us on this path. And then the role that we play in continuing, the slave mentality and the slave legacy. But if we take it back to segregation, let's keep it real. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't alive, but just like I said, I do my research. And I believe that when our people came out of slavery, even though in the beginning they didn't have anything, I talk about that all the time, they didn't have anything. But just like I said, the sense of physical freedom, the sense of being able to make it happen on your own terms. You know what I'm saying? And I believe that was the golden age of the hustler. You know what I'm saying? Not the drug dealer, not, the things that we in the hood or in the Black community describe as being hustlers. But the real hustlers, the people that had to get it out the mud, the people that had to figure it out and make a way. I believe that when we came out of slavery, that was the golden age, because those people literally took nothing and made it into something. And like I'm gonna touch on a few historical moments to give better insight on it. You know what I'm saying? Like how we got to this point. But as everybody knows, slavery was abolished in 1865. We're not getting into particulars of when it actually happened or nothing. Legally, it was abolished in 1865. In 1866, the 14th Amendment was passed. And basically, the 14th Amendment was meant to give everybody equal rights. You know what I'm saying? Everybody equal rights. And I know all the intricacies of it. I know how it didn't work. I know how they fought us. But the 14th Amendment requires states to provide equal protection under the law to all individuals. And that was mainly meant, you know what I'm saying, to say that our people should be created equal. Our people coming out of slavery should be treated, you know what I'm saying, just like everybody else. And like I said, I know all the problems that came with that, but we're not focused on the problem. We just focused on the broad aspect of it, the 14th Amendment. So think about that. You know what I'm saying? Again, time frame matters. You know what I'm saying? 1866. 1866, the 14th Amendment was passed, which gave everybody equal rights under the law. Okay, think about it. In 1896, there was a case, Plessy versus Ferguson. Basically, it was a case where a white guy wanted to sit on, a black guy wanted to sit on the train car with white people. He wanted to integrate. You know what I'm saying? He wanted to get in where he fit in. And he lost the case. He lost the case. And the thing that, the key point in that whole case was the phrase that came out of that. Separate but equal. Separate but equal. And I'm not going to lie. In doing my research and doing my history, that was a key term for me. That was a key, like, that term right there today means everything to me. And I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I wasn't back then. I know it wasn't easy, you know, as it made it seem. But everybody should have the right to separate from the system. Everybody should have the right to be their own person, be their own community, be everything, and be separate from anyone else. You have that right. And just like I said, in this case, I'm talking about the system. But back then, it is what it was. It was, you know what I'm saying, a racial issue. It was a racial issue. And just like I said, what came out of that in 1896, basically the powers that be, the white people told us, we don't want y'all around. We don't want y'all. We don't want, you know, y'all in our businesses. We don't want, you know, we just don't want to deal with y'all. Simple as that. And the crazy part about it was, you know, a lot of people were cool with that. A lot of black people were cool with that because just years later, maybe 10 years later, in 1906, you know, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded. And like we know the stories on it. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but simply because they didn't want us around them. And the law said that we could be separate but equal. We went and did our own thing. We started looking out for us. You know what I'm saying? And the main thing about Black Wall Street is we pulled away from the system. It wasn't necessarily the people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that played a role, but those people, it was a part of the system. We pulled away from the system and created our own systems. That was the most crucial thing about Black Wall Street. You know what I'm saying? In a time where other people said they didn't want us around them, we created our own. And with that came our own systems. That came, you know, with producing our own food, producing the food that we needed, producing, you know, getting our own land, building our own homes, creating our own jobs. That came with, starting our own schools, funding our own schools to educate our kids, starting our own businesses, supporting our own businesses, building ours, to the point where, like I said, that was the most prosperous time, I believe, ever for us, because we weren't dependent on nobody else. And then again, why would we want to be? Because simply said, those people didn't want to deal with us. So that's what, that whole era, did. It empowered us. It empowered us to do for self, to build our own systems. And to keep it real, we became a threat. We became a threat because we basically got all the way from slavery. We got all the way from slavery and started building our own. And the crazy part about it is those that control the system, they saw it. They saw it. So they had to come up with a way, because when they let us out of slavery, let's keep it real, they wanted us to become a part of the system. They wanted us to work for them. They wanted us, basically slavery, just like I said, they say Reconstruction. The whole thing with slavery was, to me, it was the North against the South, and the fact that the South had free labor. People in the North, they had to pay their labor. So it was a money thing. The South was eating good. The South was eating good. But the basics of slavery is, I own you, you work for me for free. But when they freed the slaves, I know the powers that be in the system was like, okay, now we have to get them back within the system. We have to get them back within slavery. So think about it. That's how it worked out. It's like, okay, now we'll give you a job. But where you worked in slavery and they gave you a place to live, they gave you the scraps from their table in order for you to work for them. They basically took care of you. But when they released you from slavery, it set up a new system. They set up a new system. Now the first system they set up was the penitentiary. The law said to where if you committed a crime, they could put you back in slavery. That's what prison is. The state owns you. Once you commit a crime and they sentence you to state time, that means the state owns you. You back in slavery. And then the other aspect of the system was, I control the resources. They control the resources. They control the food. They control the housing. They control the land. They control all of it. So basically they said, well, now I'm going to give you a job. I'm going to give you a job working for me. And think about it. When it comes to the system as a whole, they gave us the jobs. We worked for them. But then at the end of the week or the end of the month, when we got our check or whatever, we had to go give it right back to them for the house we stayed in. We had to go give it right back to them for the food that we needed, for the water, basically everything. Basically everything that we needed to survive, they controlled it. And that's what I mean by the system. So we never really came out of slavery. You know what I'm saying? It's been a slave system the whole time. And just like I continue to stress, it just don't affect us. There are white people, there are other races that are trapped in that same system of slavery. But I guess a lot of them don't see it. But think about it. When they talk about the next major movement, you know what I'm saying? Well, the civil rights movement. And like for the life of me, out of anything that we ever did in history as a people, I continue to say the civil rights movement was the worst. And just like I said, people talk about, oh, this and this, like the movement had good intentions. The civil rights movement was a pivotal struggle for racial equality in the United States, primarily occurring from the 1950s through the 1960s. It aimed to end racial segregation and discrimination against African Americans, advocating for equal rights under the law. Now, all that's good, but when you break it down to the lowest terms, ending segregation, meaning us being able to be on our own and do our own thing, the alternative would be going back in the system, going back under the system. And let's keep it real. We all know all the horror stories about, you know what I'm saying, the movement. They didn't want us there. You know what I'm saying? And just like I said, that's racist white people, racist whoever, like, they didn't want us there. But the bigger picture is we as black people just didn't spearhead that movement. We had people within the system who pushed us and supported us, you know what I'm saying, in our efforts to get back into that system or get back under that system. Because they saw that when we were separate but equal, we were winning. We were winning. We were doing for ourselves. And we didn't need, and most importantly, they didn't have access to our dollars. They didn't have access to our monies. Like I said, we built our own. We built our own. We built our own businesses. We bought and spent our money within our own communities, like Black Wall Street. Those were businesses, all black businesses, all black people who owned everything, who money circulated in their community and built a community and made their community stronger and wealthier. Black Wall Street created so many wealthy black people who basically just stayed to themselves, spent with themselves, you know, work with each other and build. And they saw that. And just like I said, I know they think long term. So I know in their minds, they looked at that and said, if that continues to grow, it's going to be a problem. Because think about it. Let's just be real in the South. We control the game in the South coming out of slavery because throughout slavery, think about this, throughout slavery, let's just keep it real. The slave owners did no work. The slave owners did no work. We did the work. Our people did the work. Our people did the farming. Our people did raise the food, grew the food. Our people did the blacksmithing. Our people did the building. They did everything. So think about it. What a lot of people don't realize, you know what I'm saying, as to why the slave owners were so mad when they released the slaves, you have to realize because we haven't did this type of work since slavery been active. So think about it. You took our workforce. You took our workforce, and at the end of the day, just like I said, the skills pay the bills. The skills pay the bills. So think about it. When black people left, the one thing they had the skills. They had farming skills. They had building skills. They had blacksmithing skills. And now when you got the skills, it's just like today. When you have the skills, you really don't need the job. When you have the skills, you can create your own job. And that's what they knew. Because the majority of the people, you know what I'm saying, in the white community, think about it. They had to rehire those people because they couldn't do the job themselves. They couldn't do it. They had depended on slave labor for so long, they couldn't do the job. So at the end of the day, when you control the skills, if you were a farmer, if you got a hold to you a piece of land, those people can't farm. They don't know how to do it. But if you got hold to a piece of land and you can use your farming skills to raise you some crops, now you control the prices. Now you control, you know what I'm saying, what people have to spend with you. If you were a builder and you could build houses, you could build stuff. Now you could sell those skills to the next person who need a house built. You didn't have to work for nobody. And that's why today I'm so big on trades. In trade school, I feel like all black people, especially black men, should go to trade school and get a trade because learning the skills to pay the bills, that puts you in a position where you don't have to go look for no job. You can create your own job and you can create jobs for others. And that's what empowered us because we became the producers. We became the free producers. We could produce anything that we needed to survive. My homeboy was a farmer. My homeboy was a builder. So think about it. We could trade. We could trade our own. Hey, I need you to build something for me. Okay, well, I need some of them vegetables you're growing. Bet I'll trade you some vegetables for some building labor. You know, hey, I'm a seamstress. My wife is a seamstress. She made clothes. You know what I'm saying? I need some of the products you got. How about we swap? How about, you let her make you some clothes because you need clothes, and we'll swap our clothes for some of the products that you make that we need from you. That's what we were winning. And just like I said, the powers that be, they saw that and said, man, look, we can't let it go on. Because if they keep doing this, they're going to become too powerful. They're going to become too wealthy. We have to bring them back in the system. We have to bring them back within the system. We have to bring them back and put them to work for us so we can capitalize off the stuff they do. And just like I said, we know how, no matter what it is, if you a plumber, if you did, you make good money hourly. But I was just talking to my brother. He does window glass. You know what I'm saying? And he works at the little window glass shop. And I'm telling him, like, bro, do you realize your skills to put your hands on the window glass and fix that window glass? That's what makes the money. That is what generates the income. A lot of us don't see that. The stuff you do, the stuff he do, him going out, putting his hands on the glass and fixing the glass is what brings in the income. Yes, they do marketing, that kind of stuff. But he works, you know what I'm saying, at a glass shop. Within that glass shop, you have the building, you have, the people who take the phone calls, everything. I had to explain to him, I said, bro, none of the stuff that they do generate actual income. That business, that location is dependent on your labor. The money that you actually go out and make pays for the building. It pays for the other 2 employees. I have many employees, and it pays for everything that go on. So think about it. You are building somebody else's business through your labor. And I push them all the time, like, you can do just as well for yourself. All you have to do is connect with me as a marketer. Let me help you market and bring in the clients. And that way you get to keep more of the money. You get to build a business and not being an employee, and help, building the system and making people who control the system wealthier. But like I said, we are so dependent on the day-to-day check and making ends meet because they got us trapped to the point where a lot of us can't see it. A lot of us just can't see it. But like I said, like, it got to a point where, just like I said, with, you know what I'm saying, the movement and Martin Luther King, to the point where, like, I ain't gonna get into the particulars, but all the sit-ins, think about it. I talk about this all the time, the sit-ins, where people went and sat in white diners and white restaurants, you know what I'm saying, to force them to allow us to sit in there. Think about this. Like, I done talked about this before, but it's the mentality that, why would you want to go sit in that white restaurant when black people had their own restaurants? Let's look at the logic. And that's why I say how they bamboozled us into believing that's what we needed and that's what we wanted. But be realistic. And then what makes it so killing, I just read a quote today when I was doing my research. I read a quote for somebody who said it was a video they had made. He participated in the sittings. And the crazy thing about it, he said, you know what I'm saying, sat in there, they threw stuff at him, they called him names, they did all of that. And once they got to the point where they could go sit there, dude said he tasted the food and he like, man, you mean I went through all of that just so I could get in here and eat this stuff nasty. Think about it. Think about it. What did we need when the whole time doing slavery, we would have cooked. We would have cooked. So why would we, in that moment right there, fight to be able to go into the restaurant for the people that we used to cook for? And to be able to sit in their restaurants and eat their food. It made no sense. And I think that was the most pivotal moment in Black history. And that whole situation right there led us back into slavery. That led us back into the chains of dependency, because just like you say, when you do the research and when you check it out, look at the fact that everything that they denied us, the buses, the restaurants, the schools, all of the stuff that they didn't want us in that belonged to them, we created on our own. We created on our own. So why would it so detrimental that we be accepted in theirs? It wasn't for our benefit. That wasn't for our benefit. You know what I'm saying? That was for their benefit because they needed us more than we needed them at that moment. And we didn't see that. You know what I'm saying? But again, we allowed them to dictate, and us, Martin Luther King and everybody like that, Rosa Parks, think about that. Black people, y'all know. When I read about Rosa Parks in school, the first thing I said was, so they did all that so we could sit in the front of the bus, and we still sit in the back when we get on the bus. We still sit in the back to get on the bus. So how did we win in that situation? How did we win? Most people I know, black people, we get on the bus and go to the back anyway. But what they did accomplish was it helped destroy the black bus companies. That's the main thing that I saw. When they say, okay, y'all can sit on the bus, y'all can sit where y'all want to on the bus, it destroyed the black bus companies. And it made us dependent on the white bus companies. When we were allowed to sit in their restaurants. You know what I'm saying? It allowed, just like I said, it gave us the opportunity to go sit in a restaurant, but it slowly destroyed the black restaurants. And not only did it destroy our places to eat, it destroyed our businesses that generated wealth, that employed us, that helped us to gain more wealth. It put us in a position where it destroyed our schools. The black schools started falling off. Oh, because now you can go to the white school. But that put the white school in position to get that funding. So everything that they did during that period that we wanted to be with them and take part in what they had going on, it destroyed what we had and made us more dependent on them. That is the most crucial thing that happened through that. And that is the most crucial time that helped usher us back into dependency and slavery. It is what it is. But like I said, that was the main thing that I see on how we got here as a people. One of the next things I see is I look back at my granddad. You know what I'm saying? My granddad, didn't finish school. My granddad dropped out in the 6th grade. But my granddaddy was good with his hands. He did construction. That's where I get it from. My granddaddy could fix anything. You know what I'm saying? With a 6th grade education, he was good with his hands. He was good figuring out. He was good measuring, all of that. But like I said, my granddad also learned to produce, grow, and raise his own food. And I didn't understand it back then. I tell people every day, I didn't understand it back then. I literally used to hate going to my granddaddy's house, having to deal with the hogs, deal with the pigs. But I didn't recognize that was a business. That growing pigs, that gave him self-sufficiency. Because not only could he feed his entire family, he could also sell those pigs to make money. That was a legitimate income. That gave him self-sufficiency. He had his own garden. You know what I'm saying? He expanded on that. He's the one that taught me into raising animals. You know what I'm saying? He had his own chickens. He taught me to raise food. I didn't understand it at the time, but he was self-sufficient. He wasn't dependent on the system. My grandmother and granddaddy rarely ever went to the store. They went to the store for flour, you know what I'm saying? Cornmeal, stuff like that. They rarely ever went to the store for meat. They rarely ever went to the store for vegetables. He started giving me the game on that. But the killer part about it was another move that we make as black people. Just like I said, my mother and them back then, my mother and them didn't want to be in the country. They didn't want to be, farming. They didn't want to be raising no pigs. So the powers that be, the system, appealed to them like, no, go get a job. Move to the big city. Move to the big city, get a job. They paying good, on jobs in the big city. So my mother, you know what I'm saying? My dad who raised me, they moved us to Dallas. You know what I'm saying? My mom got a job, they get the good jobs in Dallas. But we move right back into the system. We move right back into the system because, again, they control the jobs, they control the income, they control the housing, they control the food, they control the water, they control the electric. So we move right back into slavery. But they had made a good paycheck, so we were winning. They felt like they were winning, but they didn't know you gave up your freedom. You gave up your freedom in a space where now you're dependent. And as soon as them folks don't want to deal with you no more, or as soon as you're not, meeting their standards on the job, they'll let you go. And everything you got to crumble. Everything you got to crumble. You'll lose your house. You won't be able to feed your family. None of that. None of that. And then for the people who start fighting, say, don't worry, we got you with the welfare system. We got you. You can't, do what you need to do. If you lose your job, you can't take care of your family, whatever. Just get on welfare. But if you get on welfare, you got to kick your husband out. You know what I'm saying? You can't be on welfare and have no man living with you. The system, slavery, back into it. But we thought we were winning. We thought we were winning. I know, because like they used to brag, like, yeah, I got a good job. I got a nice house. This, I got that. You were slave to the system and didn't even know it. So again, that's one of the major, cultural shifts and changes that led us into slavery, into the slavery that we're in today, being slaves to the system. Another thing that played a key role. My granddaddy set all this house up, set everything up, but my parents didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do that. So when my grandparents passed away, they didn't leave a will. They didn't, say how the how the house was supposed to be, handled. They didn't leave that. So again, misled adults. My mom, her sisters, her brothers, they couldn't get along and figure it out. So think about it. A plot that had given my granddaddy self-sufficiency, a plot that he had utilized to feed the entire family, a plot that he had utilized to try to build generational wealth. They took it and sold it. And not just them, so many of us, so many other of us, parents, grandparents worked hard, bought land that made them self-sufficient, that they could build towards self-sufficiency. At the end of the day, we didn't understand it. We didn't understand it. They had already got us. We were living in the city. We needed money. So we sold our self-sufficiency or our chance at self-sufficiency for some right now cash. And what do we do with that cash? We spent it back into the system. We bought cars, we paid rent, we bought food, we put it right back into the system, right back into the slave system. So we sold our self-sufficiency. I watched so many families do. I watched so many families sell their family land, get rid of it, you know what I'm saying? And then I got, like I said, I know people around here right now with land, but they don't know how, to use it to become self-sufficient because they didn't want to learn them skills back in the days. They didn't want to be farmers. They didn't want to raise chickens. They didn't want to raise, but now, just like I said, look at the trend now. Everybody want to do a backyard garden. Everybody want to, get some chickens for some eggs. Everybody want to try to do it now because they see, but like we had it all. And we gave it up to go back to being slaves to the system. We had it all. And just like I said, at the rate we're going now, if we don't figure out how to get it back, we're going to stay in last place. Our kids going to stay in last place. So, again, I want to ask, are we holding ourselves back after all that I explained? Are we responsible for the situation that we are in right now? Yeah, we can blame everybody else. We can blame the system, but we made choices and decisions that put us in this situation. And This right here now is where accountability comes. I believe it's important to talk about the systems because we need to know where we come from, to understand where we at, and to understand where we going, hopefully. But it's also important that we talk about, like I said, the things that we do. Because even when the system created obstacles for them back then, they still had choices. They still had the final choice, the final say on how they responded. And they responded good. They responded good all the way up until, the civil rights movement, when we allowed ourselves to be led back into the slave system. But we still had the power. We still had the power. We still control the power. And that's why I'm always stressing. We have the power to support local Black-owned businesses. We have the power to support reading and learning. And like I say, I don't knock no other business. But like I said, I go to AMPM in Shreveport. I go to AMPM. But I know what I'm saying? Those people at AMPM that own this store, they're not putting no money into the community. They're not putting no money back into the community. You know what I'm saying? They're not funding no schools in the community. They not, funding, nothing that's going on in the community. They not. And just like I said, I don't knock them because they not of this community. So that's not their job. That's not their job. And I've been saying for the longest, we had an opportunity to get a store in Shreveport. And I reached out to people that I knew, you know what I'm saying, my people, to try to make that happen. We wasn't in a situation right now. But that's what we need to be on. We need to, you know what I'm saying, as Black people, especially in Shreveport, because I said it's predominantly Black. So people might hate me for what I say on the other side, but the predominantly Black neighborhood should be, the businesses within those neighborhoods should be operated by the people who stay there. That's the only way that neighborhood and that community is going to benefit. If those people that own those businesses stay somewhere else and they are making money in the Black community and they're taking their money somewhere else, that's not on them. That's on us. We should be owning those businesses. We should be, making it happen. The people that stay in the community, and that's why I reached out to Allendale Strong, because I respect everything that they're doing in the community. And the blueprint that Allendale Strong uses in Allendale is the blueprint that can be taken, I believe, to any other Black community really in the country, but especially in Shreveport, just because of the number of Black people in this area. But like, we got to get on it, man. We got to get on it. We got to take back, control of our communities, but supporting local businesses. Start back pushing reading and learning, because a lot of y'all can't read, I swear. A lot of y'all can't comprehend. A lot of y'all don't know how to read. You know what I'm saying? A lot of y'all kids don't know how to read. Y'all not pushing it. Y'all not pushing education on it. You know what I'm saying? Y'all, these kids now thinking they're going to be, social media influencers, streamers. You know what I'm saying? Like, we not pushing education no more. Everybody done switch education for, I look good, I make content. So we got to get back into pushing education. We got to get back to parenting, man. Seriously, parenting. A lot of y'all, you know what I'm saying, wasn't raised by good parents, so y'all don't know how to parent. We got to figure that out. We got to get back into mentoring. For the people like myself who know trades, for the people like plumbing, like, we got to get back into mentoring and schooling these youngsters, man, on giving them the tools that they need to create their own jobs and create, you know what I'm saying, their own resources. Man. We got to get back into financial literacy, not just getting money, but how to keep money. We got to get back into it. We got to get back into, like I looked at, creating your own business, creating your own job if you're going to have a job. Because you control if you get fired or not when you create your own job. You're not dependent on nobody else. So it's different. Let me see. Ooh, I'm running out of time. But we got to know what I'm saying. Get back to conflict resolution, learning how to deal with each other. You know what I'm saying? And how to work together. We got to get back to voting. People count. You know what I'm saying about voting. But just like I told you, voting move mountains. It's just stop voting for them, you know what I'm saying, people that they give you to vote for. Stop voting for the people who they put in front of you and tell you to vote for. You know what I'm saying? We got to come together. We got to unite. We got to, you know what I'm saying, choose our own people who going to work for us and put them in that position. You know, we got to start focusing on building strong families and community organizations. Like, we may not control every obstacle that we face, but we can control how we prepare ourselves and how we work together. They can't stop us on that. We stopping ourselves. We are stopping ourselves. And I'm going to tell you, the key to rebuilding, the key to taking back control, the key to getting to the point where we are not slaves anymore. You know what I'm saying? The key to getting back to that point is three main keys. Three main keys. Three main keys. It sounds simple. It's not, but it's three main keys. The number one key is we need to unify. We need to come together. We need to come together because we know as we know, any real person right now knows if you don't have a support system, that's whether you're a single mother with kids, you know what I'm saying, whether you're a working person or whatever it is, if you don't have a proper support system, that weakens you. That weakens you. We need the proper support system. That strengthens us. That enables us to make the moves that we need to make to better ourselves, to better our households, to better our neighborhoods, and better our communities. We can't do it alone. It ain't gonna happen. So number one, we need to unify. You know what I'm saying? We need to unify. We need to come together. We need to buy from each other. We need to, you know, barter with each other. You know what I'm saying? We need, you know, to take care of our communities. We need to, you know, cooperate on different projects. You know, let's get together and open a store. Let's get together and open a restaurant. Stop trying to, you know what I'm saying, outdo everybody else and trying to do it on your own. You will fail. Anybody that know that. Get with your family. Don't say you're going to start a family business and then, you know, just go out there to try to do it on your own so you can shine, because you're going to fail. Get with your family. Utilize, you know what I'm saying, your network, unity. Number two, educate yourself. Never stop educating yourself. Not just school, you know what I'm saying? Educate yourself about money. Educate yourself about business. Know your history. Know your history, because a lot of us fallen into the same trap that those people did back then and don't know how to get out. If you look at your history can give you points of where we went wrong so we can focus on getting it right. You know, educate yourself about your health. You know, learn leadership, learn parenting, learn trades, learn technology, because knowledge becomes action when it's applied. So you have to educate yourself. You have to educate yourself. And number three, once you unify, once you educate yourself about what needs to be done and how to do it, then you need collaborative action. You take the people who are unified and educated themselves, and y'all make it happen. Get out there and make it happen. Like, imagine this. Imagine neighborhoods where people intentionally work together, where people come together and start businesses, where people come together and start investment clubs, where they investing together, where people, know what I'm saying, get to the point where they start working together to educate the kids, where they start mentoring young adults. They start, you know, starting businesses and creating job opportunities for other people in them areas. You know, we start working together, you know what I'm saying, fixing, you know what I'm saying, buying this property, fixing these houses up and improving housing, you know, start supporting our kids or our people that's getting out of prison with reentry programs. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of this, you know, working to select and build our own leadership, political leadership. All this can happen. All of this can happen. Unity, education, and effort, man, making it happen. Making it happen. But no one person can solve all these problems. No one person can solve all these problems. But a committed community can solve many of them. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. But hey, I had to get out of here, but I'm going to leave you with this. The future won't change simply because We recognize problems. It changes when enough people decide to become a part of the solution. And I made the commitment a long time ago. And I'm open to talking to anybody, you know what I'm saying, that's about it. Whether you're a business person, whether you want to get into, you know, a backyard garden, you want to put some chickens in the backyard, you know, whatever it is. If it's going to help you better you and help you pull away from this system and take more control over your life and your well-being and your future, I'm here to help. You know what I'm saying? I do video consultations. I do phone consultations. But hey, whether you agree with everything I said tonight or not, this is what I do. I hope you'll ask yourself this. Number one, what skills can you share? Number two, who can you mentor? Number three, which business can you support? Which business will you support? 4, what can you build? What can you build? What can you teach? How can you help strengthen your neighborhood? I want y'all to think about these questions. Change begins with responsibility, grows through education, and succeeds through collaboration. That's the vision behind my prosperity movement. Just like I said, I got boots on the ground. I got my hands on things trying to make it better. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here. If you want to jump out here with me, let me know. Reach out to me. If you want me to jump out there and help you, reach out to me. Let me know. The goal with this show isn't to just point out what's wrong or to point out what's broken. The goal is to help build something stronger. That's the goal, and I'm going to keep pushing. But hey, if tonight's conversation challenged you or gave you something to think about, I need you to do 2 things. Number 1, share this live stream with someone who cares about our community. Number 2, follow me on all platforms at I am Toby O'Neal. But most importantly, join the conversation in the comments. Tell me, what is the single most important thing that we can do to build stronger, more self-sufficient Black communities? What is it? Let me know something. Let me know something. But, you know what I'm saying? Before I get out of here, you know what I'm saying? On a personal note, I got to have surgery the coming up week. Got to have eye surgery. So I may not be back next Thursday. And if not, hey, I'm going to miss y'all, but I'm going to try to get back the Thursday after next. So, again, like I said, hey, man, take care and keep pushing. Take care and keep pushing. And like I said, whether you watch the live stream or whether you're watching the replay video that I post on, you know, the P-Ave Perspective channel, whichever way you get it, I hope you get it. You know, I hope you enjoy the video. I hope it inspires you, man. I hope it motivates you to take action. But like I said, I'm always open to network. I'm always open to chop game. I'm always open to make something happen, man. That's what I'm here for. But I'm going to get on out of here, and hopefully y'all enjoy the rest of y'all week. Send a special get well soon to my little brother, Charles Fuller. You know what I'm saying? And my uncle, you know what I'm saying? Al Scott. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all get well soon, man, because we got to get to it. We got to get to it. But y'all take care, man. Have a great rest of your weekend and have a great night. Peace. I'm out of here.